Good morning, Tartaria hunters. Welcome to Tartaria, Australia. Hi, Cambell from Autodidactic.
Hello.
And in the house tonight, we have Tracy Harding. Woo!
Hey, Tracy.
Tracy got name dropped to us, the author of so many books. Your backlog is like longer than our screen. And Tracy, my God, like what would be the right word? Your intuition, your imagination, your nonsense, your knowledge, your gnosis, your mind, your neuropathway, it is wiring and firing. And though you probably never termed it Tartaria transformational consciousness before, you're right in the middle of it. Did you know that?
I actually, after I watched your show, I did, that's for sure. Absolutely. These guys are like all over this stuff, which is great because we need more people all over this stuff, really.
Well,
Nice.
Welcome to the
Yes,
show.
tell us a bit about yourself. So you've written more than 30 books, is that correct?
No, I've got 21.
Oh, 21.
I think you probably get them more because they got one of the books that was short stories and they split them all up into individual ebooks. And so it looks like I've got like about 30, but actually it's about 21. But I've got another one that I've just written as well. So that's 22 and an audio that I just put out. So that's kind of 23.
So Tracy, I don't know where are you at with the Tartarian journey?
Well, I started my journey back in 1996. That was with the Ancient Future. And I was basically just writing about what interested me. I mean, I really wasn't looking to be published. I came out of school with in fourth form, or that's what, year 10 now, with a D in English, dyslexic, couldn't spell. So I wasn't actually thinking about becoming a writer per se, but I was a storyteller big time. And I would just, and they just roll off the top of my head, speaking of nonsense, absolutely, yep. I would just go anywhere I wanted. And when I started writing The Ancient Future, it was because I'd been in the film industry for a while and I'd wanted to make films, but I have an imagination that's like this big. And way back in, the 80s, when I was in a film industry, nobody had that kind of budget here, So it was like, you know what? I think I'm going to write a book. And even though everyone was saying there's no money in writing books, only, the top 2% of people ever make a living out of it, blah, blah, blah. I just went, well, I'm sick of waiting for everybody to nod their head. And so this way I can do it on my own. So just dove right in. And at the time I was really interested in places of power, like ley line crossings, all the earth-like phenomenon that happens around those places. And it wasn't a far stretch to sort of think, they could be time portholes, especially at certain times of year where they resonate more than others. And so I got a female martial artist from the present day and just threw her back into the dark ages with a bunch of knights. It was so much fun. And I was having so much fun. And I just kept rolling with it because I'm just so interested in all those greater mysteries. Why are we here? How did this get here? Like you are. I've been watching Cambell's work on all the sunken, would you call it sunken city? Mud
flooders, yeah, sunken buildings.
And just going, our history is so bullshit meter. It's very high. Of our history.
You're being very kind there, Tracy.
Oh, you have no idea.
And even when I was writing the books, because I was delving into history, I had a lot of people sort of going, oh, they didn't have castles like that back in the Dark Age, and they didn't build villas and all that sort of. And I'm going, what? So they had the Romans go through there. All the locals were the ones doing the craftsmanship, and they just all went back into grass huts. I don't think so. I think that they would have taken over those fortresses. They would have reinforced them, and they did actually, because Viraconium in just outside of Wales there, was definitely rebuilt around probably the time they considered Arthur was alive, although Arthur is a complete myth, which was another reason why I wanted to go back into that age, because I'm going, well, because every myth is based on something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to go back and sort of take a look at who might have been the real Arthur. And as it turned out, I landed on Mewe and Gwynedd and Taliesin. And because Meriden actually didn't exist for like another 100 years after that. And so I'm thinking, why is he associated with Arthur? Why is Arthur associated with Cornwall? And obviously these are Welsh stories. So obviously that's where you've got to go look for, you know, that particular person or the encapsulation of whoever that person was. And as it turned out, I probably landed on the right family. But I think by the time I'd written all, because there's 13 books in that series, and by the time I'd got back to the prequel, I kind of hit on Owen Dangwyn, who was like Melwyn's uncle. And he is probably the one that is most likely to have been Arthur. He's the one that probably rebuilt Vericonium. That was probably Camelot, blah, blah, blah. So I was just fascinated in all that, which is why I started writing. I just did it for the fun of it, really. And now I went back into Atlantis in the second book, and in the third book, we came forward in time to the Gathering of Kings. And then seriously, the books just kept getting more and more esoteric. We kept going weirder and more wonderful places, the other world, the underworld, other planets, other universes, you know, different dimensions, planes of existence. You know, there's nowhere that my characters did not go. And, you know, that's why they were so great to hang out with. It was just like, and everybody loved them. It's kind of like a coming home, a kind of, you know, that chicken soup for the soul kind of feeling.
For the star seeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And so people just read them over and over and over again. But as they become more switched on, they actually get a deeper meaning out of it all the time. And I mean, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I was just following what my muses were putting out. And I still go back and read things and go, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Get sucked into my own books when I've got to go back and do research.
So Trace, like, you know, I don't know, you've probably caught up to date on the fact that Cambell and I are on a quest for actually going on a real physical journey into the desert to look for a crystal city.
Okay.
So we're literally doing this, and we're taking our cameras with us, and we're going on the hunt for the crystal city. It's random. We've made it up. But now, since we put it out there, we've had so many people and interesting stories come forward and evidence turn up. And it's just like, we just had to name it. And then, boom, the portal opened. And so much has come that has now validated its actual evidence of its existence. And it's the total possibility and potential, especially now as we waver around all these timelines going up and down and all the impacts of like messing with time.
Very interesting, because I mean, when Jo was on, she was talking about my books. Now, it wasn't, I don't think it was in this series, like the Ancient Future series, although we did kind of cover like the Secret Brotherhood, like the Sacred Brotherhoods and stuff like that, like the Galactic Federation and stuff like that. But I think it was in the Mystique series, that was a 3-book trilogy, that we were dealing with Tara, which was basically Earth's like etheric double, which was very much what you're describing. And portholes, I think there's portholes all over this planet, especially where ley lines cross. And if you've ever stood in the middle of like a stone circle, it's amazing. And I'm not talking about Stonehenge. Like, I went and saw Stonehenge, and to me, that was kind of like watching a caged animal. It was kind of, I did not get a good vibe from it at all. And it was funny because a Gaelic friend of mine who can read Gaelic said that they actually moved Stonehenge quite some time ago, and that it's actually further across country where it originally was, like that crossing. But standing in the middle of a stone circle, you can feel the energy. Like, seriously, if you've got any pent up emotions or anything like that, you'll be crying and letting it out and blurting it all out within minutes because it's just that intense. So, absolutely. I think there's a lot of things to be discovered on this planet that we just haven't even discovered yet. We've got no idea about. And, a lot of like North Pole, South Pole, Shambhala, like the whole inner earth cities, like there's a million of those places that have been just passed down through the ages. And because the earth has been spinning on its axis, God knows where they actually are now, because land masses have moved and all that sort of thing.
Well, I have to say,
there is a theory that Atlantis is under the polar ice caps, but there's other theories that it's mid-Atlantic, like the Azores, around that area. That's where I pinned it to be. But there could definitely have been more than one major city. Well, there was, absolutely throughout time. And so but as far as the crystal city goes and etheric realms and stuff like that, definitely, I'm pretty well sure that it's all out there, just waiting to be discovered.
It is. Have you seen star forts yet? Have you come across star forts?
No, I don't think so.
No. Star forts.
Tell me.
They're these big structures that we're told are military forts, but they're shaped like cymatic shapes, like stars and different.
Like the moon.
I'll show you.
Different, just like stars, cymatic patterns, and they're everywhere. And we think that they're probably on ley line points.
Okay. Well, I mean, Shambhala would be an example of that, because definitely we've had stories of there being a superimposing place within that place, that only certain people can find. I don't know if you ever read the what was it, the teachings of the wise men of the Middle East. I think it was a group of scientists actually went up there.
It was Masters of the Far East.
Yeah, my God, what an amazing series.
Amazing.
Don't listen to it in the car because it's absolutely mesmerizing. You probably had an accident.
These are star forts, by the way. Can you see on the screen?
Wow.
They're all around the world and no one's ever noticed them before.
Well, I mean, now that you're mentioning it, I have noticed these. But you don't kind of question it. You just go, okay, somebody built that at some point, That's amazing.
Yeah. That it's over and over and over again. Anyway, sorry, continue. I'm just illustrating as we're going.
Yeah. And I mean, just the same with Atlantis. I mean, they're finding ruins under the sea, like off the coast of Japan, for example, like there's a huge pyramid structure off this.
Yonaguni, yeah.
And I mean, one of my books, I had no idea where I was going at the end of, I think it was the light field. And my muses just give me these clues. It's sort of like I was getting pyramids, and I'm going, oh no, not Egypt. Like it's been done to death. I don't want to do Egypt, And then it was like, well, I was getting this little voice in my head going, well, there's pyramids in other places on the world, And that's when I discovered the ones in China.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, oh my God, there's more pyramids in China than there is in Egypt.
Egypt, yeah.
Except they keep putting trees and stuff all over, like trying to make them look like a hill,
Yeah, these are some of them here.
Open them. They won't open them. But, I use them in another story. And the configuration of one lot just outside Xi'an in China are exactly the same configuration as Giza. Exactly the same.
Wow.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
Yes.
This mysterious plane of ours. So I have to say the premise of Tartaria starts with the fact that this realm we live in is flat and it has a firmament over it and a dome, so to speak. And that when we talk about multi-dimensions, we're talking about past the realm, out of the realm, the flat realm. And
that's the way that the Celts actually portrayed it as
absolutely.
So that's really interesting.
And if you look through all the mythology and all of the original texts from every culture, the earth is flat with the firmament over it. And always this big tree. There's always a tree, a big tree of life, a central tree that goes through it. And we've since in the last week pieced together, thanks to the new E. Warren drop, everyone who's been following it, that actually the giant trees of our realm were the ancient gods, and all the mountains. I don't know if you know this, Tracy, but all the plateaus and the very pointy mountains, they're all shattered or cut down giant trees, that we don't have mountains on this plane.
That's really, really well, I mean, the Druids, of course, all of their sacred places were tree groves. They were absolutely devastated. The Romans, that's the way they beat them, is they went in there and they chopped down all the trees.
Yep,
and they burnt them, you know, which was devastating to them.
Well, absolutely. So we've got this comparison now of mountains being tree trunks, either the plateaus that have been cut down or they've fallen down and shattered their trunks. And
I mean, this kind of ties in with all these giant skeletal remains that they've found too, which also ties into your building as well, Campbell, doesn't it? Because of those great big huge doorways they had in everything. It was like, why were they so huge? You know,
yeah, giants.
And all the, you know, ancient Greek dwellings, they were massive.
Yeah. And the further back you go, the bigger things get.
Exactly. That's really, really interesting.
And I mean, we've got tools and like there's guns and spears and swords and all types of stuff. That's
giant
just
books.
Giant
Books. I love. Like, I'll show you. Have you seen them, Trace? They're so cool.
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't seen the books?
Oh, they're so good. Look, they're literally this big.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Oh my God!
Like, look at this.
Oh my God! Where are they? Where did they find those?
Oh, they're all over the world now. I see
they're all held in little places where no one can really get to them.
Basically, they're all under the Vatican.
All the interesting stuff is under the Vatican. I really want to get in under the Vatican.
Look,
but we've got some of the maps. Some of them are map books, and we've got some of the maps out of them. But that's all. We don't really know what's in the rest of them.
Yeah, and there's giant instruments. There's one.
Oh my God.
There's one of the maps here.
So basically what we've pieced together so far is that before the last reset, basically there was a situation with the ancient gods who we think now were the giant trees. And the giant trees, and then there was, and we haven't quite got the chronological order yet, but the gods came down, bred with the Son of Man, bred with us humans, produced babies who ended up killing their mothers, like literally too big to be in a human stomach, ripped out. Most of the women died. The babies that lived became giants, and they were big, massive, brutal giants that ended up.
This is the whole Anunnaki thing.
Yeah, and basically ate everything. They ate everything and then ended up eating humans. And then at the same time, there was this big push on genetically modifying everything. So man was bred with beasts, with birds, with sea creatures. So we get the mermaids.
And we're trying to do it again.
Exactly. Because we're on the Great Reset again, right?
Yeah.
So we're at that point of the Great Reset. So this was sort of like 300 years ago. And then to like purge, because we are in a biblical war, like that's beyond shadow of doubt. This is a spiritual war, and the Bible is playing a fundamental role in all of this as probably the most accurate book that's predicting it all. And if we look at that, and literally there's 500 missing books from the Bible. So like,
I went into all of that in the Mystique trilogy as well. Yeah. But the whole sorry, what were you just saying then?
Okay, so we've got this storyline being pieced together right now that God who had wanted to cleanse, because when we genetically modify our DNA, we no longer the children of God. We become the children of, well, in our terminology, Satan, really, like the mimic, the copy, the genetically modified version, like GMO seeds. And that's what they do.
Junk DNA they keep trying to take out. That they had to start calling non-coded DNA because they really don't know what it's for.
And it's really tricky because they want to be the gods, this satanic agenda. They want to be the gods. And they're not the creator God. So they have to mimic it. So they take a God seed, like a literal seed, or like a human being, or like the weather, or like an animal. And then they modify it, genetically modify it. And then they own the patent on that genetic modification. Therefore, they become the owners and the creators of that modification. Yeah. And that's what the apple juice is doing to our culture right now. And every time that happens, we enter a great reset. And the last great reset came with a purge. And, you know, we have all these stories of the Noah's flood, but they've added like 1,000 years or thousands of years into a timeline. So we don't know if that flood was literally the mud flood that we're talking about here in Tartaria. And it's like literally was only 300 years ago. God flooded the plain and took away all life apart from Noah's bloodline. But we look at it from the trees. So the last week we watched an episode of a series, and it was basically indicating that the fallen gods or the angels cut down the trees and held off the waters while the trees were being cut down. And that's then now all of our mountain ranges, etc. Right. And then seven aqueducts from within the earth opened up, and like 30 from above the earth, and water poured onto the planet. And we have the flood, the mythological flood. And suddenly we have no trees on this plane, and all these roots, all these just cut down stumps basically. And
what I found was really interesting when you were talking about the whole mud flood thing and the theories of that 1,000 years sort of going missing somewhere. It's funny because when I want to study history, I have no interest in that period, like anything between the Romans and then the next thing is sort of like the 1500s, maybe the witch hunts and that sort of thing, like that whole period. I know there was some Viking action in there somewhere, but that's not to say that it wasn't happening, you know, at a different time. Exactly. But it's funny because I've just, like, my instinct is always to go back to like the Dark Age and before, like anything that is slipping into that kind of legend period where they're not quite sure. So even when I went to ancient China, it was like, you know, 200 BC. The last book I wrote was like Cambodia, same thing, 200 BC. And then I was coming forward into like just ahead of now. And some of the stuff I wrote, seriously, I had to take it out because I thought I was going to scare people. And now it's actually happening. And I'm going, oh, my, that's scary. Like, seriously, this should be current affairs. I don't know about fiction, but, and then there was another era that was like long into the future where everybody was in the inner earth, basically, because out here had just been trashed by AI.
So you say that you get, or your muses talk to you or give you ideas. So do you see that this information is coming from a higher source, and is it trying to tell a story, or is it just creativity?
I think so, because as I say, like, I mean, I just thought I was writing a fantasy series, you know, for my own curiosity, but I have so many people write to me and go, like, I have memories of this stuff that you're talking about, you know, it's all true, isn't it? And it's like, I can't, I mean, how do you even tell what reality is anymore? It's like changing on a daily basis. You know?
Yeah, fuck reality. Fuck reality.
And I mean, the best I can do is just, you know, pass on the information. And seriously, sometimes I start writing these books. There was one, I think it was Eternity Gate, and I did not know where that book was going. I sat down to write it having absolutely no idea where it was going. And I just was writing, and then we had to go into this dark universe, which I didn't want to go into, and the whole Gregory thing. And I was going, why are we doing this? Why are we going here? And I was literally 3/4 of the way through the book before everything clicked, and it just went boom, 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 boom. And it was like, oh my God. And consciously, on a conscious level, I did not know. And I never know. I just go into my books and I just go with it. And it just all pans out perfectly somehow, you know. So it's almost like I'm taking some kind of ancient memory, maybe from another timeline, another dimension. I don't know. And I just am putting it down, and people go, oh, you're channeling this stuff. And I'm going, well, I just call them my muses. I kind of always have. Could be Guy. I don't know. I kind of, I just sort of I try to stick with the facts, because when I get a hit on something, I'll go and research it. And quite often I won't agree with the research. Like when they were saying the Britons were all living in grass huts or whatever, I'm going, rubbish. And then after I'd written all that, they start digging up villas from that period. It's like, well, I was right. Sorry, historians.
Man, Tracy, you're this like, if only you knew who you really were.
Yes.
Like, seriously, like you are like most definitely one of like the most celebrated historians and most celebrated master teachers and scribes. We're just here in our little amnesia game, but most definitely you are probably one of the world's most renowned historians. And
well, I mean, when I actually first started writing this, I had people like, critics read The Ancient Future, and they were telling me my ideology was insane. One review said, even if you have to, don't read this book. And, that was my first effort of writing ever. So that kind of hurt. Oh. But then within 3 weeks, it was a bestseller with no publicity, no nothing, unknown author.
Fuck 'em.
And it just, exactly. And then they conscripted me for a trilogy. I thought, poor bastard's going to have to read another two now.
Triple fuck 'em. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, because basically, like, most definitely you are writing from a place from your future self to you are the ancient future. That's you. You are the echo in time. You are the master of reality, Tracy. That is you. And like,
well, I actually came into my own story by book 6. When you get up to like Cosmic Logos, I actually had to come into my own story to actually explain how this reality fitted in with all the other realities that were coming through in the book. And like, like my main character was one of my muses, which I actually felt she was. And she would overtake me all the time. I was never as strong-willed as until she kind of came into my psyche. And then all of a sudden it was just like, I've got my Tory boots on now, man. Don't fuck with me.
All right, Trace. So let me bring you to Australia. So your homeland, you were born here in Australia?
Yeah.
Yep. Whereabouts in Australia, Trace?
I was born in Ryde in Sydney.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I sort of was brought up around sort of Carlingford down there in New South Wales. So Westie. I was a Westie from Sydney.
Yeah, cool.
And, really not really, I wouldn't call spiritual, like my mum used to make me go to church and we used to wag and stuff, to hang down the bush instead.
Wag. You sound like Kylie Mole. Spazzo and wag. You remember Kylie Mole?
And a ciggy, down the bush instead. And so it wasn't until I think I discovered, I think early on we had a ghost in our house. So that probably triggered stuff for me. Was
that just you or was that a ghost?
That was a ghost.
Okay.
There was a ghost that used to walk around the house. And you knew it was walking around the house because we had this in the dining room. We had a cabinet that rattled when you walked past it. So you could hear when he was doing laps of the house, right? Or you'd be vacuuming and he'd come right up behind. You could feel like, things, we had things go flying.
So it was a bad vibe, a bad feeling, energy.
Yeah. So that kind of got me interested in, stuff that was paranormal, like, and then I discovered the Adyar bookstore in Sydney. And I think really that was it for me. I could have just lived there, just all that fantastic. It was like, why weren't we taught this in school? Or like, you think everybody would be talking about this stuff. And I had a whole bunch of girlfriends and we were all into different stuff. Like, somebody was into crystals, somebody was into natural healing, somebody else was into places of power, somebody else was into, and we'd all just get together like a couple of times a month probably and, drink tea and smoke a lot and talk theories about all sorts of stuff.
That's my favorite afternoon.
I know, right? The best use of time ever. And I think, kids don't get that now. It's like, how can you, they're not filled with that mystery and wonder. They don't know what well, my kids do, because I've absolutely plowed it into them that magic, creating real magic, is creating your own reality. And the way you do that is you sit down and you converse with the universe and you ask for what you want. You don't chase things, you bring them to you, I've never chased anything. It has always come, and I've asked for some pretty outrageous things, I was sitting on the veranda one night when we'd moved up here to Brisbane, and I was thinking, wow, it's really about time I got back to doing that TV series or making a film. I really need a producer, and I don't want someone who's a creative, okay? I want someone who can get the money to get this thing made. And I went, you know what? I won't name the show, but there was a show I was very fond of. It was very big. And
come on, what is it? Come on. Can we guess?
Because I'm not allowed to let the cat out of the bag. If I knew, everybody would know. So, but I can say it's very, very big. It was very, very popular. And I said, now I need somebody with that kind of vision. Like the producer on that show would be perfect. And seriously, 2 days later, I had a call from FBM, who I am Film Brand Management, who I am contracted to. They've got the option. And she kept talking about this producer that she loved, that she worked with a lot. I would really love him, blah, blah, blah. Turns out he's the producer of that show, So I just went, 2 days it took. And that was like a 1 in a zillion chance of that happening. And I didn't even look for it. It came to me. So that's making real magic happen. And you do it in everyday life. And you do it by staying on top of your emotions, on top of your thoughts, and just being in gratitude all the time for everything that's happening. And it just comes, And so I think that kids these days kind of miss that. They don't, and this is why we have so many of them getting depressed and, that sort of thing. And it is really hard being a kid these days, even though some of the toys they have to play with, like, oh my God, if I had those when I was their age, I would be so much further ahead in my career. I'd probably be animating my own movies by now.
Oh, it's true, isn't it? We have, but unfortunately, it's also a fast food culture. So, like I also had a bookstore. There was the Theologian Society here in Melbourne City, and that was my bookstore. Like, it was just so significant. I sort of discovered it when I was like around 20, and I was just like, and I knew there was no other bookstore I could find books at, like, that I wanted to read. There was nothing. So, we are of that genre that had a bookstore. I'm sure everyone in the audience had that bookstore. And
I'm sure everybody in Sydney would know the Adia. It was on the second floor of the Strand Arcade. You would go up that elevator, the doors would open, and it would just be like
smell. I know the one.
Oh my God, I loved it there. All my lunch times when I worked in town was spent up there. And I mean, my bookshelves are filled with their
same. So I mean, and it's really significant because we know that, like, systematically one of the biggest focus throughout history is destroying the libraries, destroying the books, taking the libraries. And two, we get to this day and age and people even questioning the validity of books. Like, what's the point? We're all on our Kindles now, we're all online, like, no one buys books anymore, you can't be a writer, like, and it's bullshit. Like, books are so fucking important to the development of your neuron pathways.
Yes.
Like, if you want to deal, like, the internet does not do it. It is once again, it's a mimic of that experience. You will never, ever have the same experience reading a Kindle as you do reading a book, because that energetic funnel, it changes the way your brain's interacting with it. Yes. And so,
and you don't have, when you're watching anything online, you don't have the patience, do you? It's like, it's really hard to find something that draws you in so much that you've got the patience to finish watching it. Mind you, your videos do, guys, actually. I have to say, I just get sucked in. Like, 2 hours has just gone past.
Woo, she gets sucked in.
But with books, it's that whole immersion, and it's activating your imagination. like I was a product. I have to say that what probably I wasn't a reader when I was dyslexic and I couldn't spell. So obviously reading for me was not going to be my favorite thing. But I saw Star Wars at the pictures and oh my God, that was it. I was just like, I want to go there and I want to live there. And I'm just, yeah. It was the first time that really kind of took me out of here and now and put me somewhere else.
Yeah.
But then after that, I discovered books. And I think probably something like The Mists of Avalon or something like that, where I actually discovered that whole pagan side of England, like something that was beyond Catholicism. And, you know, it kind of triggered something. And then, yeah, the Adyar bookstore triggered just, oh my God, everything. Like, you know, and when we went to England, I actually went with Paul Devereux's Places of Power, which had all the stone circles marked out. And he'd kind of investigated them all, like what times of year they're kind of active, the ley lines, all that sort of stuff. So it was a really great guide. And to be able to go there and experience it in person, and then you can put that into your work and go, well, this is what it's like. It's not just, you don't just go as a tourist. I mean, one of the stone circles we found, we're driving around, I don't know, Cornwall, Devon, and we're asking everyone, we're going, where's these stones, you know? And they're going, oh, up the road. Yeah, nobody would really kind of tell you where they were. It was kind of like something, it was like some mystery. You had to go find it. And we were driving up a road and there's this tiny little sign that says the stones. It's pointing that way, right? So we stopped and we looked and it's like a farmhouse and a gate. And I'm going, so what do? We climb over it? And the girls are going, of course we do. Of course we climb over it. So off we went over. And it's really misty. You can't see a thing. Can't see your hand in front of your face. All we can hear is sheep. And then the mist parts and here are these stones just sitting in the middle of this field. Pure quartz crystal stones that are way huge. And speaking of those giants, they're the only people that could have moved those things.
Yeah.
You know, seriously. They were huge, and standing near one of them, like you were just like this. And I mean, we saw earthlight phenomena when we were over there, like drove through a mist up in the Scottish Highlands that was just filled with these lights. And again, you could feel that same electricity just coming off it. It was amazing. Scottish Highlands. And then when that cleared, we're on the top of the Highlands and there's this rainbow all the way. Like it was just one of those moments that you kind of never forget, you know.
Magic, baby, magic. There's magic all around this realm. I actually grew up, ironically enough, in between Tweed Heads on the Gold Coast area and friggin' St Ives in Cornwall. My family's Cornish and my father's Welsh and I'm Australian. What a weird combination is that? Hello, that's me. That's my story. And I grew up in a hotel. My parents had hotels. So we'd have like all these pensioners coming every week and then leaving and coming all year round. And every Friday night we did a little like concert. And Nikki and I, my sister, we were kind of like expected to be a part of this welcoming and farewelling. And so for 14 years, every Friday night, I had to do the chicken dance and the hokey pokey. I'm fucking not kidding you. I am a result of Cornish Welsh parents growing up in Tweed Head doing the chicken dance and the hokey pokey. So when I talk about Master of Nonsense, I'm not fucking kidding you guys. I don't know if you remember the chicken dance and the hokey pokey, but it burnt into my soul.
Well, at least they didn't make you do achy breaky heart, you know.
So Trace, I'm so fascinated. Like we're focusing, we're homing this into Australia because Australia has such a unique premise because we're meant to be only 200 and something years old. So basically here we are in this magnificent country. Fuck me, it's magnificent. Like we've got magnificent Tartarian cities all around Australia.
Well, there's a pyramid at Gosford. There's hieroglyphs up there.
Yep, there is.
And they're dated accurately, like way beyond probably even the Indigenous people. And in Egypt, there's records of people traveling over here and just grabbing kangaroos and stuff.
Absolutely.
And they've got boomerangs in Pharaoh's tombs.
Yes.
And the reason we piece together,
like everyone else.
we've pieced together is that the Indigenous Australians were the original civilization in this realm, on this plane, and all the tribes came from the northern coast tribe. And what's fascinating is they were considered the law keepers of the whole realm. So all law, and when they speak about it, Cambell, I've noticed it's like they talk about it like it's an entity. Like it's not a word, a book of words. It's actually a living, breathing entity. When they say the law keepers, they hold the law as if it is a thing unto itself.
Well,
and
that's
that
like
was
bards, same thing, verbal
exactly.
tradition.
And that law is the law of the land. And the hijacking we're undergoing is the law of the seas. And that's connected to the Phoenicians. So we've literally, so the original law keepers were here in Australia, and they prophesied a new cook was coming, and they moved the law into the heart of Australia somewhere. Yes. And so we've got this so Australia's just, and then we've got this red desert that takes up the whole of Australia. And of course, with Tartarian infrastructure and buildings, they're all made out of red brick, right? All of them, these vast civilizations through all of our known understanding of the realm itself, all red bricks. And suddenly we have apparently this desolate desert landscape, all full of red sand.
Well, I hear that wasn't inland sea.
Yeah, yes. I'm just about to do a video on it. There's an 1837 map.
Yep.
But I mean, one of the third book, Masters of Reality, actually ended up, they had a secret base at Wataraka, which is Kings Canyon there. But we were also, like, a lot of it was revolving around Uluru, obviously, because, you know, it's definitely a sacred place.
Yeah.
But Kings Canyon I was particularly attracted to as well. I don't know why. I thought if you're going to put well, not only that, we had the gathering of kings happening. So it was kind of ironic that there was a place there called Kings Canyon. So it was like, right.
So what did you intuit and tune in about Kings Canyon?
I had one of my characters had gone forward into the future and then come back to the present day. And he had already foreseen that they were going to need somewhere to hide out from the authorities, and he had set up a base there. So that's what I got from Kings Canyon, is that they set up this underground base there.
Okay, keep talking.
Like, well, I've never actually been there, but I've got other people that have gone there and just gone, my God, you were so accurate. But I'm like that when I zoom into something, like I will and a lot of the places I go, of course, you can't research. Like when you're going to another dimension, another planet, another universe, you can't research that. You've got to dive into your imagination and go there.
You're like a universal remote viewer, man. You're like a multi-dimensional remote viewer.
I like to think so, because I have so much fun doing it, you know. It's like, to me, it's a blast, but there's so much esoteric information that comes along with that, you know, like the whole 12-strand DNA thing that came out in one of the books as well, because it was connecting with the whole junk DNA thing. It's like, how do you know when you're taking parts of DNA out of fruit and stuff like that part isn't the part that actually feeds our soul on another level? You don't know, because I mean, most of you don't even believe we've got a soul. I think scientists have actually figured out that we have a soul and that it does leave the body at their breakthrough.
Yeah, they've measured. They measured the weight of a body when it died.
Exactly. But I mean, at least they're getting there.
Really, because when you said that, I was just about to say dickheads. In my head, I was saying dickheads.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like they've proven it, but there's still, they don't want to believe it. They're still rejecting it.
Exactly. Or any of the other, like, there's some pretty damn weird stuff going on out there. And, you know, in my last book, I thought I was diving way off a deep end, you know, and like, having been through watching what's been going on for the last couple of years, going, man, I thought, no, it's just like, oh my God. So I was joking, okay? And people are going, no, we're just going to have to put it in current affairs now.
So with your last book and the stuff you took out of it, and now you're reliving it, like, where did your last book take you? Like, what was the title of it?
The title of it is The 12 Chapters of the Infinite Night.
Oh my God, stop, because Cambell and I have been on this trip of revisiting the 12th Insight.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like we've just been like, we've gone on this trip. Like we started with the Celestine prophecy. Yes. As everyone did, most of us did. And then most of us read the first 3 books and never even got to the last book, which is the 12th Insight. And we've just like brought it back up, and it's all about synchronicity and the 12 insights for now. So your book, tell us more, the
12 Chapters of the Infinite Night. And the reason the Infinite Night is describing this dimension that we're in. Okay. Yeah. The 12 chapters were the 12 different archetypes that we go through, like the fool, the orphan, the innocent, the warrior, the leader, the healer, the creator, the fool, all that, there's a lot of them. And what I wanted it to be was, I want you to get the feel that you were going through a day in the life of this character, and then you were waking up next morning as another. Because who's to say we don't do that, right? That we're just waking up in the morning remembering everything that's gone on in this character's life, and where you're going. And so, but each character were on a pivotal day to do with a particular teaching. Okay. That was, one character was channeling, another character was trying to destroy it, another character had rediscovered it in another age. And so it was all kind of revolving around this teaching, which was very much based on kind of Taoism, because I relate to that very well. It's very earthy, very beautiful here and now. It's not about being lofty and spiritual and leaving here. It's all about what to do to survive in this place, and how to be at one with this place that you are, because there is only the present, right? So that's what the premise of the book was. But it took me to ancient Cambodia, where this country had been invaded by these invaders that were very brutal. And they had a temple there. And in this temple was all this black goo, this intelligent
black goo,
right?
The black goo.
And, which by the time we got to the present day, they had studied this stuff, and they knew that it was like they were calling it organic AI virus.
Yep.
Okay.
Spot on.
And they'd figured out ways to get around it, but it was, had to do with the whole AI agenda and them not really relating to our carbon bodies, but really liking silicon, so that whole trying to get us transhuman, it was kind of, playing into them, really like, and I had different delivery methods in the book, but I kind of had to cut it back to kind of geoengineering because I didn't want to freak people out, but
go nuts with us, man. Don't hold back. We call that black goo the vril. And JC mentioned it last week on the podcast, came from a very ancient demon that's been trapped here and is leaking this black goo.
Well, in the book, I'm getting chills. In the book, it actually, the way that it came through in the book was, it is the demiurge. It is the offspring of Sophia. Okay. And Sophia came here and created this planet. Like all the ancients called the great earth mother Sophia, and she's kind of in the inner earth, but she created this place for our souls to develop. Now, she was never supposed to be involved, okay? She was not supposed to be involved. The demiurge wasn't supposed to happen, none of that, but she came here to make this planet to protect us. And this demiurge was on another plane of existence, but as far as it was concerned, it created everything, and so it thought it was God, and, but it convinced like the ancient priests of that had escaped from like Atlantis into like that part of the world to build Göbekli Tepe, the only place that's been buried on purpose. And through a ritual they did there, they opened up this porthole. Now, they thought it was going to open up in front of them and it was going to come through, but it opened up in the atmosphere and this stuff fell through on Earth and it kind of got splattered across the world. So it wasn't just one place that ended up with it. It kind of got splattered everywhere. And one of those places was in Cambodia where we were dealing with this one, and it seemed to be like almost like the main, but this stuff is attracted to itself. So if it found out about another deposit, it would want to get together. And world leaders that were discovering it later on, like I often wondered what the whole Falklands Islands thing was about. Like, why are they fighting over a whole bunch of hills and sheep? Like, what's the
in
big
the middle of nowhere?
In the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. And apparently there was like a rig there, but it wasn't digging up oil. And one of the soldiers that was put in charge of watching this stuff while they brought the ships around to load it on, you know, they kind of had a peek at it, and this thing was reacting to being looked at, and it was reacting quite violently, and you had to keep it really, really cold and stuff like that.
That's interesting.
Kind of, no, I'm not going to say that. I'll get video banned. So.
No, actually, you know what? Just coming in under Tartaria, we're uncensored at the moment. Like, there's no algorithms cutting us off at the moment. We can speak freely. We've got a container for a little bit longer.
Yeah, exactly. So I just have to be, you know, but I mean, people can get the book and like, well, hopefully it's with my agent at the moment, and hopefully we can get it out there. If not, I will self-publish it, because I don't know. It is different to my other book. It's probably not as commercially viable, but people who get it will really get it. Like, they will just devour it. I love it. But the interesting thing is that it was also associated, like in ancient times, with like they created AI to fix the ozone that they, you know, destroyed bringing this stuff through. And then once the AI are done with that, they've gone, oh, well, we'd like to use them, but we'd like them to be more human. They gave them these beautiful, like, I think it was like the Octurians gave them these beautiful celestial hearts that kind of made them much more human, gave them this direct connection to galactic center, pretty much like we have naturally, but it was kind of like an artificial version for them. But then when they decided the Earthlings all wanted to make war on each other, they coated those beautiful hearts in this black goo so that they would fight each other and be hostile. Then they figured out they didn't need to fight each other, and they tried to destroy us. Then the Octurians came in and went, okay, no, we're just ending this. So they destroyed all the AI, they put the goo back where it was supposed to go, and they took all the beautiful crystal hearts and gave it to Sophia to protect. And it turned out to be the only thing that could defend humankind against this goo, right? It would, or the relics of a holy man, you know, something like that, because it could feel that same connection. But I won't kind of give it all away. But it was, the ending quite surprised me, I have to say. And really, you know, the tagline of the book is, in the battle of good versus evil, the battle is not over till everybody wins. Everybody, not just the good guys, everybody, you know? So it was like, and once I heard that, I'm going, how the hell is that going to happen?
So do you have any ideas? How is that going to happen? Have you heard about the split, the new Earth, all this kind of stuff?
I kind of, I've heard a lot of theories, and what is true to one person may not be true to another person. And really, I just keep my mind open about everything that's going on. I would not say definitively, yes, that's right. Because once you say, yes, I know that's right, that's it, you get blinkered, right? So I just stay open to everything. And, you know, because I know I've seen some pretty weird stuff that a lot of people would think, no, you're kidding. And yet other, you know, and the same thing, like people will come at me and tell me things, and I'll just be going, whoa. But I don't disbelieve. I never disbelieve anything. So I'm kind of really open to learn. And because what I've discovered in all my research is that with science fiction, of course, it doesn't have to be real. It just has to be plausible. Right.
And same with history.
Same with history. And if it's plausible, it's probable. And if it's probable, it's probably happening. And it's probably there. The same with all the technology and stuff like that. Like, people think, you know, we're way behind in nanotech. Are you kidding? It's like, oh my God, they've been so all over this for so long, you know.
So long. So have you interweaved into your sort of, I'm just going to call it future, like you're channeling. That's what you're doing. You're channeling. And, you know, the Tartarian audience is like a brand new motherfucking awesome audience for you because like they're so up to
Even
date.
when I was just mentioned here, I was watching, all of a sudden my YouTube went berserk because I think I may be suppressed because I have a lot of friends that might be considered a bit renegade. And so I think like I've watched on like Instagram and stuff, like I'll be getting all these new followers, but my numbers are not going up and things like that. It's just like,
yeah.
That's really weird, you know, or I'll send out a message and I've got all these subscribers on Facebook, but they're not getting it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like,
I have my subscribers go up like so much a month and then I'll just randomly lose that exact same number.
Yeah.
I know, I keep thinking
it's like, really?
Too. But don't forget, we're caught in a perpetual Mandela effect right now. Perpetual, like CERN. That there's a smaller version of CERN, and it's like in Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere. And someone was talking about this, and Elizabeth April, and she was just saying like they're literally turning that thing on every day at the moment to jump and fuck with the timeline to try to alter this thing of this awakening, and it's friggin' messing with our heads, man. Like,
well, it's letting the bad guys in and out too. Like I was listening to Danny Searle, actually, he's Australian as well. He was giving a talk the other day and he was talking about, you know, them opening up those portholes to let certain entities give them easy access, you know.
That's what we all thought it was like since it was built, but now at this point looks like they just, like you say, flicking the switch.
It's like jerk. So anything is possible
and
right now.
Everybody goes, no, they're scientists, and it's like, but they get paid by someone. Who do you think is paying those people? Follow the money.
Absolutely. So in one level, it's completely I know for me personally, like I've got a good brain on my head, and the last couple of months it's felt foggy. It's felt like I've had to really, it's hard for me to, because I have a massive life that it takes a lot of multitasking, and it's hard for me to stay like all over that like I normally do. And I find that I can only really do one thing at a time right now, which is very ineffective for what I've set up around me.
Well, that could have something to do with the Schumann resonance as well, because it's absolutely been going completely ballistic, and all the solar flares from the sun have just been going.
So they're all related, right? I think they're all interconnected. And I think if you're awake and you're talking at this level, like you're being affected, and in the same way the sun is, in the same way the Schumann resonance is. And so for us, it's like, on one hand, it's like really counterproductive to our 3D worlds, which it is. But on our 5D worlds, or whatever this level is, you're just like,
probably going great guns.
All the magic's flowing through, the portals are opening, like we're having these amazing dialogues, and you know, so it's
manifesting really quickly. Like, and that's the thing. It's like when people kept talking about this 5D ascending and all that, I'm going, no, I don't think that's I don't see myself ascending up to heaven and being an angel or something. Like, that's not the way I see it. The way I see it is either you're here thinking, oh my God, this is awesome. Those are the people that are on fire. They've got it, they've integrated, and they're just rocking ahead. And you don't attract all that bad stuff that everybody else is talking about. It kind of doesn't really come into your field of existence. And I've always thought that it's like, when you are resonating at a certain frequency, it's like you could have the biggest badass in the world walk right past you with bad intentions and just not even see you.
That is
like
accurate.
you don't even register on their radar. I used to live in King's Cross, and I used to be able to walk around King's Cross in the middle of the night and not get harassed by anybody, you know. But other people will be having huge problems. And it's in the way you carry yourself, and it's in the vibe that you put off, you know. And so the people that are here going, oh my God, this is terrible, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen. You're absolutely right. It is, you know, it's all about the nature of personal reality is a thing that exists, you know. It's like your reality is everything, and what you create and what you think is absolutely everything. So if you think we're all going to get past this and it's all going to work out fine, that's exactly right. It is.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, but it
That'd be
is
great.
taking maturity and sovereignty, because like I definitely align with that thought process. But this moment in human history, like I'm in Victoria, I'm in Melbourne. Fuck.
I know.
Hello. And like I know I've got to make a decision now to move out of the state or even the country. I know that I've got to like buy new property. I know I've got to sell old property. I know I've got like all these things
like that. As soon as you decide what it is you want, it'll just line up. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
I had to do it too. And it was so funny because it happened to me 5 years ago. I had to shift from where I was. And because all my family had moved up here, my BFF had moved up here, and I had no intention of moving. But for some reason, it was like I would go into a state of panic when I thought about not doing it. And I had to renovate my house. I had to sell. And for some reason, the market just went up at that time, mysteriously, just really went up. And we sold for a fantastic price. And it all just fell into place. Like, seriously, I had moved my whole entire existence in, 2 days, matter of 2 days, up into a new place, like bang. So it's like you just have to know what you want to get what you want, seriously. And so I absolutely get where you're, and I mean, my ex, who still comes up here for Christmas, comes up to Brisbane, and he's like skittish because it's like, what, why is nobody wearing a mask? Why are you not distancing? Like and it was just like, can you remember this is how it used to be before you were really
like 250 timeline jumps ago, this is what it used to be. Remember those days? Yeah.
Exactly. But even he has kind of cottoned on to what's going on, and he's a really straight hardworking guy, but I think even he has sort of gone, my bullshit meter is starting to which is great because it makes it so much easier for us to have a conversation without, getting into it. And that's the thing too, is like losing this need to be right or to put your beliefs onto somebody else, which is why I rarely talk about spiritual. I mean, I do in my books, it all comes out in my books, but it's up for people to take away what they want from that and to investigate the things that interest them. I don't really do spiritual lectures because I think spirituality is a very individual thing,
Yeah, this is one of my pet peeves,
and
right?
Of course you're going to have disagreements and
spiritual people.
And I just don't want that kind of, I believe what I believe and I just rock along with that. And I just keep taking in new information and rocking along with that.
Yeah.
And I find that's the kind of best way to do it. But the Schumann resonance, oh my God. Like if I wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning for no good reason, I can pretty well guarantee that the Schumann resonance is going off. I remember waking up one night and I was literally like this. It was like I was trying to unplug something from my third eye. Now that's a lot for me to admit, but that's what it felt like. It was just like, oh God, will you just stop? I've had enough. I just want to sleep, please, But I was wide awake by that point. It was like, oh, okay, well, I may as well get up and do some work.
Yeah. So I've heard that you do other work like tarot and things like this. Is that correct?
What I do is when I do tarot readings, it's not like a tall dark stranger is coming into your life. I don't try to predict the future. With what I do is I use cards the same way I write a story. So I look at the research that's in front of me. Yeah. I may even go and see what are the meaning of those cards, but quite often I'll disagree. Like I'll see the story playing out in front of me, and that's what I tell somebody. And it's like, okay, this is what the universe wants you to know right now. You're probably avoiding talking about a particular subject. Somebody's bossing you around. You really don't need that. You need to kind of deal with it, but you need to deal with it this way, like blah, blah, blah. And I just it's more like positive reinforcement from the universe. And I can't count, like actually I think every single person I've read for has gone back to me and gone, oh my God, how did you do that? Like you just hit the nail right on the head. It's because I don't question what's coming through.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's like belief, like you said before. If you believe it, you create it.
Yeah.
I've got a fun game going on with myself at the moment. So I've got like 20 books on the go, and I'm deliberately not reading the last chapter of any of them. So and when I finish the 20 books, I'm going to go back and read the last chapter of every single book in one go, and like so that I get this entire like summary storyline. And it's a mixture of like it's a mixture of like farming, food, your book's in there, like a whole pile of random fucking Martin Lecky's book in there, like the 12th Insight, all these books we've been like looking at. And I reckon in one hit, I'm going to have 12 or 20 actually keys all lined up in one story. And I think that's a fantastic way to read books. Like, why are we taught to read them so linear in this such a like ridiculously non-linear reality we live in? It's just another example of programming. So imagine if we took the last chapter of every single one of your books and read it as one whole story.
Yes. Well, it's funny because the last book I wrote, the 12 chapters, because it was 12 different chapters over 3 different time periods, I had to write the book sideways, like rather than linear I had to kind of do a bit of this one, do a bit of that one, do a bit of this one, do a bit of this one, come back to this one, go over to that one. So it was kind of written sideways. And I've never written like that before. That was a real challenge. It's probably the hardest book I've ever written, and I think it's probably the most important. And it's incredibly spot on. And it's Tracy, this used to write, but I'm looking back at stuff I wrote 4 years ago and going, oh my God, that's now.
This was the first book I ever wrote. It's called The Secret Book of Useful Things.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's the most prophetic book I've ever. I illustrate children's books.
Oh,
you can't see probably, but basically it's guided. I wrote this when I was like 21, and it's guided my journey this lifetime so insanely. And like when I realized that, I was like, man, every single thing I touch from my imagination is just my roadmap into the future. It is my psychic abilities to know my like destined journey here. So in summary of where we stand today, like what is going to happen, Tracy? What's going to happen from the depth of your understanding? Hold nothing back, because our audience is supremely smart. You can say anything.
Well, that's actually a really good, it's a bit like when I write my book. I like not knowing. I like waking up in the morning and being surprised by what the hell's happened. Like I will go to sleep and go, okay,
let's make it up then.
Particular person in politics that I really don't like. I really need you to get rid of that guy. Okay,
all of them. Be gone with all of you.
And it's so funny because all of a sudden you're seeing them go down one by one. They're all getting thrown to the wolves, and it's kind of like, well, that's really interesting. And that's the way it's like. What's going to happen is what we make happen, what we create, and we don't even have to go out there and fight in the streets. Although that, not fighting in the streets. Peaceful protests, really fantastic. But it's really about your own little piece of real estate. And I mean, it's like if you can keep this peaceful, if you can keep this space gorgeous, and everybody who walks into your space feels that and takes that away and makes their space like that, and this is what my books do to people. It's like, it's a fun story, but at the same time, you are getting this whole inner click in your head about creating your reality, how to do it, how to get in touch with yourself, what chakras are, how's yours work, all like a whole gamut. Because I read Blavatsky, like she was one of my first influences. Now, I remember somebody going, you don't read Blavatsky, you kind of reference Blavatsky. I said, well, I didn't. I read it cover to cover, and I understood exactly what she was talking about. She was talking quantum physics before we had the language for quantum physics. She used different terms for it, but she was all over it. What I didn't like was she had to spend half the time explaining herself, like cutting off her critics to try and lead into whatever she was talking about, because she was just so criticized for I wouldn't have bothered. I would have just I don't bother, actually.
She has some dodgy seed points there, doesn't she?
Yes.
Connected to the real society.
And she was absolutely, there was so many people that have been just absolutely amazing channels for information. And A lot of them probably
Well,
won't
like you. Hello. It's you. Tracy, tell me, come on. You are a multi-dimensional, very revered historian. You are. Like, you know that about yourself, right? I already know who you are. So tell us from that perspective, how does history write this story? Just like, I'm not saying it's going to be everyone's story, but generally speaking, we're about to see a split in two worlds. Would you concur with that?
I would concur. Even from the oldest esoteric information will tell you that was destined to happen, and that
you probably wrote, by the way.
That
I love who you
are kind of not really making the grade are going. Their souls will be recycled into like a reality, or that is going to help them get up to par. At the same time, the people over here are going to be moving on to the next thing, maybe Tartaria.
Take three, take
Irish
four.
just called it Tara. You know,
well, that's, you can't miss that, can you? Tartaria and Tara, very similar.
Exactly. The association is just but we'll kind of go on to progress. But the thing is, really, when we're all not getting out of here until we're all there. Okay, so this is why you cannot judge another person. You know, you've got to really just love everyone. Your enemies are your greatest teachers. Seriously. So it's like, you just have to have that patience. Look at the Buddha. He wasn't going anywhere. He's still hanging around somewhere waiting for us all to get our shit
sitting under a tree.
So we can all move on. And that is what I see happening. How it's all going to play out in this society, I think good will always win. The light will always win. Shadow always has to retract from the light. I'm sorry, because it can't exist in the light. You know?
Yeah, you can't turn a dark on in a light room and make it dark, but you can turn a light on in a dark room and make it light.
That's right. You know, unless somebody falls in black goo. Okay.
That freaking black goo, that fucking black goo, it comes up, it's like a freaking horror story in every direction, that black goo. And I tell you,
Danny Searle was talking about that last night, because he was saying that because he was talking about reptilians, and that they existed on the fourth dimension, and that's what they eat, because that's basically fear and bad thoughts, and like all those terrible thought forms manifest into that stuff. In my story, it was actually sucking the souls out of people. Like, it fed, because it was trying to get that feeling it got when it was connected to those crystals, especially, you know, but it couldn't when it got somebody very spiritual in front of it, it would try to cover them in goo so it wasn't affecting them, because it would pacify them. You know, anything of a high vibration would pacify this stuff, you know. So that I thought was really interesting.
And that would undermine all the stories we have with the genocide of our children, and especially our Indigenous children around the world. Like that sort of there would have been something in that, because what was our term the other day? Instead of sarseeds, we are terming organic consciousness. So a consciousness that is of the realm and is of God created. Yeah. So that organic consciousness is particularly in our Indigenous and the 12-stranded DNA bloodline. Wow, they've been doing insane, terrible experiments on them genetically, underground, of course. And I had this theory that potentially whatever happened with that great deluge and that flood and Tartaria, that timeline being reset, and the ether being manipulated, so suddenly all that free healing high frequency energy was manipulated to create this false paradigm that we're in, this mimic realm. It was that black energy, that source material coming in from underground and utilizing the structures, because Tartarian structures, a tech involved with the Tartarian structures was basically drawing energy from the ether and utilizing frequency, so sound harmonics through organs and massive instruments into through the cathedrals and into water. And this is like this circular, beautiful, divine economy of those resources. And somewhere in there was a hijacking that presented a false, flipped over, inverted, mirrored, Black Mirror, that Netflix series, Black Mirror reality.
Mirror.
And
Yeah.
it's always, they always associate it with black. So
Yeah.
the black goo coming in and through that process makes total sense to me. And then, of course, they take all the black people, all the black original people of the land, and they genetically like attack to the hardest degree. And yeah, I mean, we've just, because I think that 12 strand.
Young ones too don't have the capacity, they haven't developed that tough skin, because I mean, you haven't really come fully into your body until you're what, 6 years old or something, you know. So depending on the experience you get before that time is how that child, so when they want to do like all that MK Ultra stuff, they'll be getting the kids like really young so that they can be, you know, programmed much by the time they're kind of 13, they can kind of send them out as agents or what have you. But you know, the goo itself is crystalline, you know, and the fact that you're talking about it going up that energy, that's exactly what it was doing in my book as well. It was like, because it was attracted to it, but at the same time it was pacifying to it as well. Like that beautiful energy was kind of pacifying it. Like there was like one deposit of it, and they had, you know, they'd kept one of the relics of the Buddha on top of where they were storing this thing. They kept it frozen, very cold, but to stop it getting aggressive, because it won't freeze. You can pacify it, you can make it sluggish, but very hard to freeze. So they had like a relic on top of it, and that kind of just made it all kind of.
Yeah, because they found some, didn't they, in Egypt? Was it Egypt in a tomb?
Yes, that's right. Well, you could tell something had been in that sarcophagus and had crawled out and gone somewhere.
And that's very interesting, because
and the same with the Falklands.
Okay, all right, that's really interesting.
Okay. Yeah, because there was an oil rig there, but it wasn't mining oil. And so those guys and when they took it back, because it went back to England, apparently, because I mean, that's what they were the ones that were fighting to get this. And the people that were dealing with it, like the scientists and everything that were trying to work it out and what to use it for, like were dying in mysterious circumstances. Like, I mean, how does one suicide by decapitation? Self-decapitate? Like, I'm just reading the report going, okay, that's weird.
Okay, so this is really interesting, because obviously my first introduction to the black goo on television was the X-Files, and that was and they encapsulated it in ice, so it was in the Antarctic, that was the hub of that. And interestingly, when we look at what the firmament is made out of, because from all of our understandings, we have a firmament over it, and above us is water, and that firmament is blue ice. Have you seen this information, Cambell, where it's actually
I did a video on it. Yeah, it's they call it sky ice, basically.
Sky ice.
It's just ice, but I think it's high in oxygen or something, and they've found walls of it in the Antarctic.
Yeah.
And when they make holes in it, it grows back. It basically just grows back and fills the hole in. And they can't, it's just got all these weird properties. And apparently in some countries that they've got some because it just fell from the sky.
And all of the holes, and it basically, if there's a hole in the firmament, it grows back. So when we talk about the black goo, it's almost like the blue ice, the sky ice that makes up our firmament, our dome. It's a counteractive measure, like the counteractive force, like nothing can, like this black goo can't escape. It's almost like, if I'm bold enough to say, that our firmament is a quarantine, is a realm quarantine in keeping this black goo in, and it can't get out. This blue ice is the counteractive of the black goo. And that's, to me, okay, so I was always taught, one of my teachers always said, Earth is under quarantine and you cannot get out or get in. And when he said that to me, I was thinking, I understood the idea, but now that we know all that we know, this is 20 years ago, it's like, yes, there is now a toxic containment issue in this realm. We have been encapsulated in a security measure, that is the counteractive measure to this black goo, and which means all the portals out of the realm also got stopped, which means the whole
Not
satanic.
all, because these MK Ultra guys,
they travel around. Yeah, it's true.
They've been sent out there by whoever is.
Well, they're definitely forcing it with CERN. I mean, like, they're definitely doing it with AI.
Prison planet.
Yeah, prison planet. So the counteractive measurement to us breaking down that quarantine process, I think the end game for us is unconditional love.
Oh, absolutely. That is like any prophet, spiritualist, anything will say that. Now, the demiurge or whoever's working for them will try and flip that, go, no, it's all about you. And it is all about you, but it's all about you giving unconditional love to everything. Like I said, your enemies are your greatest teachers, and a lot of these guys that have been abducted by aliens and stuff like that, when they've stood their ground, their will, that they got to let them go, because they can't do anything with that. It's like he's not cooperating.
Yeah, which is the same as what's happening down here. It's definitely seems to be a free will. Even if we're under quarantine, while we're in here, it's supposed to be free will. And they can tell us this stuff and they can coerce us and offer us free donuts. But in the end, we get to choose yes or no.
And it's interesting because, like, when we say unconditional love, it's been put into the spiritual realm and the new age realm so much. It's just like, it makes people think of oracle cards and fucking fairies. But like unconditional love, if we look at it as an entity, like we actually see it as a solid entity. We're talking about this black goo as an entity, and what it represents is all the fears, all the depression, all of it represents our lower frequency range of emotional human feelings. If we look at the blue ice, we can see that as like a protective shield, like a container, a containment. And then we look at unconditional love, not as a sentiment, as a fucking sentiment about gratitude, but as its own entity. What does that actually look like? Now, we've been all shown the work of that Japanese scientist, Emoto, who did the ice crystals. Interesting that we're talking about crystals again. So the black goo is a crystal, the sky ice is a crystal, and now the crystal of our actual water. Interesting that water comes through with the Tartarian history a lot. And there was an inland sea here, water again, and we've got water above us, water below us, and all the whole disclosure community was all about watch the water, watch the water, watch the water the last 18 months. So we look at unconditional love from the lens of Emoto's experiments, and it basically, what does it do? It geometrically, symmetrically aligns a beautiful crystal. It turns a fucked up crystal into perfect symmetry again.
Exactly. So what do you think enough of that is going to do to that black goo? Because you can't expect something to love when it's never known love.
It only knows our lower frequency range. It only knows our
but it is attracted to our creativity. It's attracted to that connection we have to galactic center. It's attracted to, like, it wants that. It wants that. It just probably hasn't figured out how to achieve it, So
all right. So we live on a poison planet. And everything about our planet is poisoned. And for the most part, now the majority has voluntarily put a poison in their body. And then all the poison we ingest and contaminate all the time anyway. But like poison is coming from the black goo aspect of ourselves. And energetically, emotionally, that's the poison. So the new earth, go on, you're busting. Spit it out.
It's like, I mean, a lot of these, one of these black goo pools is supposedly in what is somewhere like Paraguay, one of those South American places. Can't remember, but I think it's Paraguay. And a lot of those so-called, DEMs have properties all around, like around this thing, right? So I'd say it could very well, and I mean, in my story, it was driving everything.
Yeah.
So that's the entity pretty much that they're worshipping.
Yeah, and it's really, really smart. Like it's telepathic. It knows what you want.
Yeah.
It knows how to get you on board.
Hive mind.
Keep you on board. Yeah, hive mind, definitely. And this is why if you get two lots of this goo very close to each other, it wants to join up. It wants to come together.
Yeah, and do you know what that reminds me of is this graphene, right? Have you seen the videos of that stuff?
Well, exactly. I would hazard a guess because in the story it could also solidify and become. It was more passive solidified, but it had different uses.
Yeah.
You know, and it could be integrated into machinery like any other crystal, but
organic bodies.
You know, and like I said, you know, and all this talk of integrating tech into our body. I mean, it would just love that.
2045. Yeah, well, exactly. If that's what it's hunting for, if that's what it wants is the connection, then it would be thinking, well, I just take over everyone and then I get their connection, right?
Yeah,
whether that's right or wrong.
Everything, you know, and I mean, I think like the Anunnaki, like the whole story of the Anunnaki was very similar. They were after gold, you know, they just clean the like just enslave everybody, get a workforce going, get all the gold, and you know, nick off. This thing is the same thing, but it feeds on photons, like, which is what we emit when we're afraid, when we're sick. Because that's what we emit to heal ourselves. Like it comes out of our pineal gland. Like we emit photons. You can count photons in people, but it's way more of it because usually we generate that light ourselves. Okay, when we're healthy and stuff like that, we just generate. But I think it was in the light field. You had. Like psychics being tracked down because of their light, but you could actually see it through a photon camera that, you know, they were emitting light. But when somebody's really, really sick or really afraid, you get like huge adrenal bursts of this stuff and they just gorge themselves on it. Which is why your children in particular are particularly, you know,
vulnerable and attractive. Yeah. And all the wars and all there's so much terror. They've just rained terror down on this planet. So hardcore. Planet realm. It's interesting. So it feels like, you know, we're just sort of, when we talk about unconditional love and, you know, really focusing on that sort of energetic, it feels so intangible and tiny in comparison to this fucking goo that's taken over the whole planet and the whole fucking, it's, you know, when like I was,
because that's what gives me that, just that sitting in that amazing space is what brings all the images. It's what brings all the information. It's like, as a writer, when you get into your work and you're really enjoying it, you go to somewhere else.
Yep.
It's just like time and space disappears.
When I'm painting, same.
And that's the holy grail. Okay. That's like, and that's huge.
Yeah.
It envies that because it doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really wants it. It's very good at emulating things, but it can't create itself.
Which would then equal that if our purpose to being God created entities, energies, our is to make known the unknown, which means we are the creators, which means we are in God's image, the creator. Our energetic is to be of God, to create. And that you have to do through your imagination and your creative faculties. And interestingly enough, Trace, I work in Regen Ag. And like one of the side effects of all this poisonous, low nutritional food is that our hippocampus has depleted 21%. And that is a shrinking of the creative faculties in our brain. Yeah. So deliberately, they have actually shrunk people's imagination. So get off the GMOs and get back into your garden because you are actually eating your imagination away. Yeah. And that, so with each one of us that steps into that create the unknown, it's like energetically worth 1 million who are not.
Yeah. But you also have to know, and I mean, people that are on a very physical level, that is that is going to happen. But I also firmly believe that something is bad for you if you think it is. You know, there's guys out there that can just survive on water.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like, it's really not about what we're putting in our bodies. It's what's already in here, you know, and how our brain functions and what we believe. Ultimately, obviously, we believe that good food, like straight from the garden, is going to be awesome for us. And of course it is, because that's what we believe, you know. So there's a balancing there too. I remember, I don't know if you remember Seth, like Jane Roberts used to channel this energy called Seth Speaks. And I think she was a chronic smoker. Actually, most kind of very spirit, like Blavatsky was also a chronic smoker.
I have been also.
Exactly. And
I just think we smoked a lot of pipes through I think it's part of who we are. Those
I
pipes
want to get
change.
a pipe. I've been
Those
thinking about it
pipes
lately. I want
change,
like a wizard's pipe.
It actually brought nitrogen into our system, which actually put us on a standing of it raised us. There was something.
Actual tobacco, like proper native tobacco, it's not bad for you. It actually oxygenates your blood.
Yeah.
That's why it was a shamanic herb. It's only all the chemicals that they spray all over it.
Yeah. So
and God knows
organic.
if it's even tobacco. Could be anything in there.
Nature's little miracle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What kind of cure, you know?
Yeah.
Seriously, amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, I would love to just see that thrive. It would solve so many problems.
So many.
And it is already. People that I thought would never be into CBD and stuff like that are just going, oh my God, this is amazing. But yeah, Jane, because Jane used to channel Seth, and her husband used to ask Seth questions, and while Jane was out of her body, she'd go write books. But I remember her husband asking Seth once, you know, is smoking bad for you? And the answer was, do you think it is? And that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
Like, that is the whole answer.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I totally agree.
That's a good answer.
You know, everyone runs around saying, you know, everything's energy, and then they say, but you've got to eat this, but you've got to, but if it's just energy, then I can transmute it into whatever I want.
Yeah, you either believe you create your reality completely, or you don't. There's no middle, you know. So, and I mean, I walk around saying, look, I'm always right. And basically, I'm usually, no, there's no.
You as well, hey?
I'm always right about things. And it may take people 5-10 years to figure it out, but then they'll come back and they'll go,
you're right.
You're fucking right. You're always right, Tracy.
But, you know, is that a self-fulfilling prophecy? You know?
Well, exactly. I mean,
because it's amazing. Self-fulfilling prophecies are an amazing thing. Use them, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I call myself a fucking truth. I am all about truth seeking, and like I always uncover the truth. Yeah. Like it is matter of fact for my life. I will uncover the truth. It's just who I am and what I do. So I always think I'm right as well. I always think I'm right, but I always think I'm only right to the level of understanding that I've uncovered. So I know how much more. I know what I don't know.
I know nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But the one thing I do know, I'm right about.
Yeah. It's absolutely true. So here we are. We're in this like fantastic, like insanely creative and chaotic and complex moment in the human journey here on planet Earth. Like really no different from a chapter in your book. Hello. We're really no different from a chapter in your book.
Masters of Reality, I've had people writing to me going, oh my God, you predicted everything in that. You even got the year right. Like 2020 is a chapter in Masters of Reality. And it was just like, well, it's not like I didn't warn you.
Yeah. So we're heading we're into November now. That's been a very strongly prophesized month in this unfolding. Like we're looking at, you know, potentially getting some like
normality.
So any thoughts you want to share with the audience about November or going into 2022 this year, Trace?
No fear. Two
No
words.
Fears.
No fear. It's a mantra in all of my books. It's like, you know, what you resist persists. Okay? Give evil nothing to oppose and it will disappear all by itself. You know, don't fear it. Stop panicking. Nobody else is going to give you this damn virus. You're going to give you this damn virus if you fear it, you know?
Yep.
And seriously, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. You know, maybe it's part of your karmic journey or something. Who can say? But what's the point of fearing it and bringing it on? You know, what is the point of, what good is it doing anybody? You know, to fear this stuff and sending other people who maybe are not as advanced as you into some sort of, you know, cascading spiral of fear, you know, and because that's what they're trying to do. Like, that's what the mainstream media are all about. I am so pleased to sit there and watch a spiritual transmission like this. There's a lot of other great people out there doing it as well. It is so comforting because you go, oh my God, I'm not the only, like, I thought I was starting to go insane. I thought it was just me. I was the only person out there that actually, no, actually the majority of people out there are thinking just the way that you do. They can see it. You know, people say follow the science, and yet they're looking to the television. It's like they're not going out there and listening to what the doctors that actually created the science are saying. You know, they're not looking outside this country to see how they're handling it in other parts of the world. And then they're telling us, oh, you got it off YouTube, you're not following the science. It's like, well, that's the only place where anybody's actually telling us
it should be
going on.
It should be follow the science fiction, my friends. Follow the science fiction.
Yes, I have maps.
Tracy has maps, everyone. She has maps.
It's a lot better than the government.
Tracy, we need a map. We need a map to the Crystal City here in Australia. Could you, like?
I would absolutely guarantee it's somewhere. It's somewhere right around the middle. If and I think actually, is it JCK?
Yeah. Fucking soul sister, that one.
Like in one of her transmissions ages ago, I remember watching her, and she was talking about that place, but the goo was there as well.
Yeah.
So whether it's all over it, and like it's sort of found it and go, oh, yum, I'm just going to hang all over this, which is quite probable. You know, getting it off might be a bit wrong. Might want to talk to her about that. But I would guess that's where it's hanging out. And I mean, very, very strong indigenous spirit there as well. I mean, you're talking about what, the belly button of the world. I think they talk about it being like one of the chakras or
the heart,
like that. But I was definitely drawn to Uluru. I felt it was very, very spiritual and very beautiful. But that was just in, you know, my psychic perception of it. But then, like, hearing her talk about what's, you know, some of the stuff that's been going on there, I just sort of go, oh my God, we've really got some work to do. But I would definitely be, I'd be looking around there. Kings Canyon, again, not very far from
Kings Canyon. Well, when we first started looking at the center, we overlaid a map of the mining in Australia. And we noticed that there was a circle right in the middle where there was no mining. It was really weird. And then we overlapped the old inland sea, and it just happened to be the inland sea where they weren't mining. And then we went right to the side of it, and it was a little fucking town called Hart's Range. And so we were like, holy shit, Hart's Range. And then we like tuned into that, and all of these insane crystals coming out of Hart's Range, like things we've never seen before, crystals I have never, that look like building blocks, and they're so 5-dimensional. It was amazing stuff. So but Kings Canyon, let's add that to the map, Trace. We're building a map here. Anything else you want to add into the mix, because we're actually making this map up?
Well, I mean, the Olgas are out there as well. I can't remember what the indigenous name for them is, but I know they're out in the general area. My story didn't go there.
Where did your story go?
Well, mainly it was when they were in the Red Centre, it centered mainly around Kings Canyon, but Tori had to do some sort of spiritual trek. See, you know, you're talking about books I wrote 20 years ago.
Yeah, man, that's the best. That's what I wrote.
Now, what was she doing out there? But she found a place. It was a sacred woman's place. They used to go there to give birth and stuff. So I can't imagine that it would be a very evil place, because they just wouldn't have gone there. Not for birthing children.
This is Kings Canyon.
Yeah, Kings Canyon.
Look at that wall.
And it's like you go down into it, and it's like all bush, and I thought, what a great place to put a base. You could hide a base down there.
Yeah.
Is there water down there?
I think there probably is at certain times of the year. Might dry out at certain times. They had their own water source. They had gone deeper.
Yeah, hello, look.
Yeah, look, there we go. We've got, yep.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah.
everything with Tartaria, no mountains, remember. So we're either looking at the remains of a melted, destroyed civilization, or we're looking at giant trees cut down or rubble from mining. So
actually, there was something there that they call like what was it?
that looks like mining.
The ancient city or something. Oh my God.
Ancient city. Come on.
Yes, there was.
Tracy.
I can't remember what it was called. I might have to get back to you on that one.
You do have to get back to us on that one.
There is a place down there that they called like the ancient city or the something like that. It was just, and I remember thinking,
cool.
Look at that.
So
and it was just like all these big blocks and so it did look like a city, kind of. Maybe if it had been covered by a volcano or mud, maybe.
That looks very similar to what we would find normally with the mining, and then they dig in and then come up and make these like walls, but the color is so much like the melted realms.
Yeah.
Look at that, looks like mining. What do you think, Campbell?
It does, yeah.
Or it could also be because it was an inland sea. You see a lot of those kind of formations under the water as well, where tectonic plates have parted and stuff like that. So
ancient. Oh, look at that. Wow.
Oh, plateau.
Yeah, plateau. So that would sometimes be a giant tree that's been cut down. So look at that. Look at that straight across there.
How flat that is. Wow.
Yeah, that's so flat. That
would be part of that sea, I would think.
Let's so you have some inclination that there was an ancient city there. They
found one of those great big giant skeletons out there somewhere as well.
What?
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
All right. Let's do some quick Googling here, see what comes up.
We know they found an ancient city sort of near Uluru.
Yeah, like exactly. So I can't remember what it was called, but then I know that they found one of those great big giant skeletons out there somewhere as well.
They did. Wow.
I remember seeing a photograph of it. I don't know how long it stayed up on the internet or if they're
like
down
3
yet.
seconds. Yeah, let's
all right, let's find it. Hey, giant skeleton. We just do these live skeleton to see what comes up together as we. Whoa, what is all this? That looks like we've got into some computer land. Kings Canyon, Australia.
I don't know if it was Kings, but it was red. Oh, what was that up in the?
What's this? Yep, unearthed in Australia. That could be it.
Yep, try that.
Pretty big bar. Is that a spine?
It was big.
I know, from Adelaide.
Like,
look at that. I mean, for fuck's sake,
it's huge, right?
Yep, it's huge. It's huge. And look, there's water.
And it's not the first one they've found, not by a long shot. I mean, I think it might be the first one they found here. But you know, if your mud theory is right, God knows how deep you have to go to
what's underground. Yeah, like we've literally found buildings that have got 2 stories underground with doors and windows.
Look, when you started that talk and you were talking about the streets going sideways, because my father was a builder, okay? Yeah. So I'm looking at that and going, okay, so they wanted to build on a mountain, and so they've leveled off where the building is, and that's just the way it was. But then when you started unearthing stuff and there's windows and doors down there, and I'm going, there's not an architect alive who would do that. Like,
no.
That blows that theory out the window.
No, it's just like it's.
So, you know, that's my practical, because I'm really, I have a practical mind. Like I when I go into answering questions, I've got to be thoroughly convinced myself that it's plausible for me to like incorporate it into the books or whatever. Like I have to understand it, obviously, to explain it to somebody else. And again, like coming from a builder family, I was looking at that and originally thinking, no. And then,
it's up to like 20 feet at least that we know in some places. So yeah, who knows what's under there?
And the door, like, just so big. Like, why were that? Like, we were lucky if we could reach the doorknob.
Yeah, there were bigger buildings, but they've knocked them all over.
Yeah, well,
There was ridiculously big buildings.
Well, how the hell? I mean, unless they were using sonic technology to move things around, which I think is absolutely a plausible thing as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Especially when you look at ORM, like this orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, which has come up in my books before as well, which is this stuff derived from gold that they could, say, put on an object, heat the object, and then the object would disappear. And then when it cooled, it would come back. So, but that you could also get it to levitate, if you got it to the right temperature. So you're thinking Egyptian sun, great big rock, bit of orm on top, and we'll just float that over.
Yeah.
And that was going, well, that makes sense to me.
Well, it's like Ed Leeds Scallon and Coral Castle, how did he do that? That he's people saw him and said that he was. Yeah, two little cones, like rocks.
Yeah, those rocks.
Levitating them.
Rocks. I was listening to somebody talk about taking one of those hollow rocks over to Nassim Haramein because they were going to investigate it. And it was going through the airport and it set off something because they
I think that was Michael Tellinger. Yeah.
And going, who belongs to this?
Yeah, there was another story
guy there going, oh yeah, I've seen one of those. I know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same story, but one of them, someone actually got on a plane and they were just sitting there. They just had this rock, and suddenly over the loudspeakers, they grounded the plane, and all these police came out and pulled him off the plane. He's like, it's just a rock.
Yeah. So it must have been like screwing up their equipment.
Exactly. Interfering with all their,
So again, resonant frequency. Was it Einstein that said everything's got, it's all frequency,
yeah.
It's all to do with frequency?
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we're looking at with star forts, with cathedrals that have organs, they used to have bells, big domes and spires on them, all this stuff. They're called, cathedrals is like a cathode. And they got the big cymatic windows on them, those rose windows that they tell us are rose windows. So there's all these, the old system was all frequency based.
Like, I knew some people here that were trying to get like free energy off the ground, and they originally came across the idea when I think they were in Indonesia or somewhere, and they saw one of those labyrinths on the ground, and the scientists among them sort of looked at it and went, that's not a labyrinth, that's a coil. And sure enough, Tesla's patent, and they went and had a look at it, and everybody was going, no, we can't get it working. We haven't been able to get it working. He's going, flip it. He was left-handed. And it was like, no, that's not right. And it's like, has anybody tried that? It was like, no. It's like, well, and I think they did, and they got it working. But again, a repressed, like it was a project.
Yeah. Well, we look at in the great inventors, all they really had was access to an inventory.
Yeah.
They were just bringing out the old stuff and repurposing it.
Exactly. Like nothing on Earth is new. We just rediscover stuff.
Yeah.
Well, except us. We're new.
We're going to break the system.
I mean, we're old but new. We're all, because fuck time. We're old and new. So hey, I just wanted, because I've got to get off this screen share. I've just taken it off. But this said, exploring the Garden of Eden in Kings Canyon.
Yes.
Did you guys read this headline? Like, that's interesting. Hang on, I'm gonna have
interesting.
Yeah, so like basically it says where there was an ancient Kings Canyon, Garden of Eden, prominent Garden of Eden, 20,000 years, whatever, if it doesn't, time's irrelevant, but there's all these species and caves and rock formations and the lost city. The lost city. It says, while in the Garden of Eden, you can discover an incredible selection of plant life and unusual rock formations. The lost city rock formations are easily identifiable. From the canyon's base, you can begin the Kings Creek walk past all these ancient plants and scenery. And then it goes on to just talk about things. But how's that?
Wow, we should maybe check out if you can camp there. That could be a good place to have as a
I think so. I think we might land. There's actually a thing called Kings Creek Station, which we
I
can.
think we visited that in the story at some stage.
All right. So that's just a camping facility. So we might have our first actual location point to meet everyone.
Yeah. That sounds like a great place.
You should come, Trace. It's going to be wild.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's almost here.
Because that's the thing about my books too, is that I don't like all these post-apocalyptic,
dystopian
ugly places. I like to go really beautiful places.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where we're all going, right?
So it's like, so all my books go to these really amazing places because I'm just going, no, once we get this on film, it's going to be awesome.
Nice.
Nobody's ever going to want to leave.
So in summary here, we probably have to wrap this amazing dialogue up. It's been fucking awesome.
It's been
talking
like 2 hours.
I know, like this is what happens. And we always congratulate everyone who stayed with us this long.
Oh my God.
Because it's really important that our ability to not like get to actually be able to hold a 2.5 hour conversation and stay focused on it is really important, because we're losing those faculties. We're really turning into this fast food neuro pathway culture. Not us, of course. We are going back to antiquity. We're going back. Like when I think about myself and what I know about myself, like fucking, I have held my my domain and kingdom for a very friggin' long time. I've stood around stone tablets and tables and smoked pipes and spoken to you guys endlessly before now. Like, oh my God. So when I make Soul Family, I know, like we've
At
talked.
the party I'm going to.
Yeah, we're all going.
So you've given us a really interesting starting point there with Kings Canyon. Thank you. That's a piece of the puzzle.
Thank you.
We've had a fantastic conversation about, this like JC, it was just like in all directions. Anything
I love her, by the way, if she's watching. Wow. She's done some great stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Anything that you would like to leave with our audience? Now, Trace, our audience is so unique. They have program busted their way out of this whole thing. Like Tartaria just busts it all out. They're so smart. They've managed to get to this moment in consciousness. They've let all the programming go. All of the stuff, like all of the first layer stuff is well past their minds. Their imaginations are tuned in and switched on and turned on. Their intellect is wiring and firing. Their programs have been busted. Our audience is the fucking smartest in the world, Trace. And they are ready to fucking take all of this information, all of this synchronicity, all of this gnosis that they've gathered and wire it and fire it in one.
It's bizarre because my readers, that's exactly what because there's only a certain kind of people really that can get into my books and just really hold it, and get it. And I will mention, these books that are up here, that's the first trilogy of mine. Now, it's currently between publishers. Okay, so it's just gone from HarperCollins and it's about to be released, and nobody knows this. So this is
premiere
for you guys. It is about to be released as a 25th anniversary edition by Booktopia. If you go to Booktopia's site, they're already up. You can pre-order them.
Great.
And next year, and this is the big scoop, we're going to have a collector's edition in hardcover, because my readers read these books so often that they are falling apart and they're screaming for hardcovers for years and years. And so we're finally going to get them, which is really, really exciting news. And I haven't told anyone. I've been saving it for this interview, and we've saved it right to the end. So
right to the end. Yeah, well done.
To make it to the end are actually going to know.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds
I will tell them eventually, but yeah. So if you really want to get onto this series, I mean, I have a store too, allthingstracy.com, and I'll be selling autographed copies through there. But like I said, they're up for pre-order on Booktopia, or if you want to go and check out what the new covers look like, they're all up there. So,
awesome.
And I mean, really, if you take this journey, every book will just take you one layer deeper, one layer deeper, one layer deeper, one layer deeper, because I promised myself I would never write a sequel just for the hell of it. It had to take you further. It had to take you deeper than the last one. And that's what I've done with every single one of these books. And I mean, I've had people come to me and go, oh, I started at Cosmic Logos, which is like book number 6. Okay, there's 13 in this series alone. I have others, but in this series. And that's like really, really getting quite heavy esoteric. I was going, wow, that's really jumping in the deep end. But the trilogies after that, you're in another universe. So it's going very quantum after that, into quantum theory and stuff. So it's kind of like you covered the whole gamut, because I think this first 6 books were all very esoteric based, and that's not occult. Okay, anybody who doesn't know the difference, esoteric means anything undiscovered. Okay, so all those things that become science eventually because we figure it out, that's esoteric. And then you go into like all the quantum theory, which connects so beautifully. If you've studied metaphysics, when you go into quantum physics, it's kind of a very easy step to go with the quantum theory. Like, I don't do all the math. Okay, I don't get the math. But as far as all the theory goes, it just makes absolutely perfect sense to me because I've studied metaphysics, and I make everything so much fun. The characters are so much fun. They're so great to hang out with. So
Trace, would you recommend, so I'm going to say to our audience that consider this to be like a GPS system series books, like it's a GPS for your coordinates through this time. So would you recommend our audience start from the beginning, or do you recommend then jump in at a certain book?
They jump all over time and space. It doesn't actually matter. You can't, because then you're just going back into the history. Like if you're over here and you go, oh, wow, that was great, I'll go back into the history. But Ancient Future is where I would start, because there is a prequel to the Ancient Future, but seriously, there's kind of spoilers in there. Not that you remember them by the time you get through all 12 books, and you'll still get back there and go, oh my God, epiphany, you know? So, and it's been designed that way to kind of just slowly ease you into those kind of epiphanies that change your life, that make you walk out of the job, that make you follow your passion, that make you, you know, reassess the way you look at life, I think.
And I think like the word, I mean, we are the ancient future. Like this is you, Tartarian hunters. You are literally the ancient future in embodiment here, in manifestation. So I love that title. That title is just the best. I don't think you could write a better title than the ancient future. And I think as far as Tartaria goes and the consciousness that is wrapped around this whole unfolding, it's a perfect place to start. I myself will be reading this trilogy, and I think I will carve out the time when we're on our way to the desert. I think I'm going to lead the expedition from my side of Australia into the desert with your 3 books, Trace. I just have decided that live on the spot.
Well, and Masters of Reality goes to Wataraka. Like, they spend a lot of time in Wataraka by the time you get to the 3rd book. So, you know, they have a few revelations there as well.
Yeah. And look, I feel like, I don't know what series you're going to travel with, Cambell, because Cambell and I are coming from different sides of the country to meet in the middle of Australia. And we're going to be live with a 10,000 strong audience following us through this journey.
So much fun.
It's so cool, right? So, and like everyone's really convinced we're going to find this thing, and whatever happens, you know, we're expecting magic all the way.
It will be magic out there.
So I'm
lights and all sorts of things out there.
Well, I'm publicly declaring that your 3 books are going to be my GPS through this period. So, and with that GPS through my brain connecting to the direction I'm heading in from, it's going to filter in this like beautifully nonsensical, imaginative way that is going to be so synchronized and so flowy. So, Tracy, it has been an absolute honor. And I can tell you, this isn't just 3 strangers meeting today. I know who you are. And Cambell and I have much honor and reverence for who you are throughout all time. And it is a privilege and an honor, our friend, to have this conversation with you, master historian of all time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, guys. And thank you for creating this beautiful space for people to visit and be inspired. It's wonderful. I'm going to send all my readers here.
Yay, thank you.
I'm going to go and check this out.
Cambell, anything
Awesome.
you want to say to wrap it up?
No, that was great. We'll obviously leave links below so you can find Tracy's work, her website and books and everything. And yeah, guys, that's it, right? We've just got to make our own decisions. Whatever we focus on, we create. So choose wisely and let's go find crystal cities.
Be aware of what you're thinking. It's so important. And be in gratitude always, because it's not all doom and gloom. It's really, this is an amazing place. This is an amazing opportunity. We get to go co-create with the universe. I mean, how good is that? Jesus. Doesn't get better than that.
Jesus. So, what a great word to end on. Jesus. 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 All right, Tartarian Hunters, another fantastic episode. Thank you for watching and following us this far. Big love to everyone and have a great week. And we'll see you next week on Tartaria, Australia.
Thanks, Tracy. Love you all.
Thank you.